Hello everybody. So today we are going to discuss about nucleic acid diagnostics in our today's discussion session. So which we are dealing under medical biotechnology. So nucleic acid diagnostics, we are moving on from enzyme diagnostics, which I have discussed in previous class. So enzyme, compared to enzyme, nucleic acid diagnostics is much more advantageous as well as advanced. So when we say advantageous, it is because of its property. Enzymes, basically proteins, they are dynamic. They tend to change their shape each and every time depending on the function, structure and where it is present in the aqueous environment. But nucleic acids, they have a stable structure which we call a stranded material. Either it is double stranded or single stranded. Whether it is DNA and RNA, it is stranded. Compared to RNA, DNA is much more stable. So, for choosing a diagnostic tool, this is one essential criteria. So, it should be very stable at room temperature or any other supposedly changing temperatures. So, it should be very stable. So, in that case, nucleic acid diagnostics gives you an advantage over enzyme diagnostics. Yeah, this one also possesses their own specificity, sensitivity regarding those things. We are going to discuss all those things, and especially for infectious diseases, this plays a vital role. And today's scenario in the corona's pandemic all over the world, so it has given a par excellence compared to other diagnostic tools, where now in India as well as in any other, even in developing countries also, this molecular tool has revolutionized, and anywhere you can see there is a diagnostic lab with a PCR machine spended from the government's budget in this emergency case. So we'll see each nucleic acid topics under each heading. So we will move on to the next subheading under nucleic acid diagnostics. So first of all, we will see the concept of nucleic acid diagnostics. So first of all, it detects a particular nucleic acid sequence. So generally speaking about nucleic acid, so it will detect a particular nucleic acid sequence which you want to diagnose, which you are about to, which you are assuming whether it is a pathogen or any other toxin, something which is their genetic material, something which is related to their genetic material. Even not as a genetic material, it can be used as a probe also. Okay. So like aptamers like thing. So it detects a particular nucleic acid sequence, and the second one, it detects and identifies particular species or subspecies. Yeah, it is used as a DNA barcode, barcoding region. So generally barcode is nothing but a standard identification, molecular identification tool to identify a species from the genetic material. So a specific genetic signature is present for each and every species, even for subspecies also. Say for example, animals, they have their genetic signature for each and every species, that is cytochrome oxidase 1. That is the barcode region for identifying any species in animal kingdom. For plants, such kind of genes are also present. For example, this one, MADK, maturase K gene. And for fungi, you have this 18S RNA, and for bacteria, 16S RNA. These are the standard molecular signature markers that are used for used as well as in nucleic acid diagnostics also. So if humans are infected with any infectious diseases, and if you consider that species unknown, and if you want to identify it, so you can take the sample, analyze whether it is urine, blood or something, and you can trace out the infectious pathogen from the genetic material using these DNA barcoding regions. That's where it functions as a to identify a particular species or even subspecies also. And early diagnosis, this is very advantageous criteria for a diagnostic tool. So when we are saying early diagnosis, it means, so upon the infection of any pathogen, even if it is not present in the blood and an adequate amount, which we call as a load of a pathogen, bacterial load or viral load, depending on the load, only whereas other techniques are involved in the diagnosis. Say for example, immunoassays and other protein or biochemical assays, depending on the viral load or bacterial load, the load of a pathogen, then only it can detect. So it is a light diagnostic tool. It is not a early diagnostic tool. Early diagnostic tool is such a way, and you can know anywhere in now they are speaking about this asymptomatic carriers. What do you mean by that? Asymptomatic carriers, they have been infected, but they doesn't show any kind of symptom externally. That's what they are calling it as asymptomatic. If they are symptomatic, like cough, cold, or something, when infected by a pathogen, you can from their symptoms you can assume that. That means if they show symptoms, it has the viral load or bacterial load has been increased a lot in their blood or anywhere. If they are asymptomatic, means they are in the initial condition, which maybe they are going to show symptoms in a later stage. So they say prevention is better than cure, right? So you have to arrest at the very early stage. So similarly for corona also, that's why they are targeting. That's why they are targeting for nucleic acid diagnostic tool, especially PCR, those things. So this is the very critical point and gives an edge compared to other diagnostics tool with this criteria, early diagnosis. Now next one, nucleic acid amplification tests, and it is the other name for nucleic acid diagnostics. So it is generally called as NATs, nucleic acid amplification tests. So which you are going to discuss upon. And the next concept which are dealing with the nucleic acids as diagnostic tool, it raises the sensitivity and specificity of the reaction. So much more than enzymes, it has more sensitive and specificity. So we know that compared to proteins, DNA, the size of the DNA is very smaller compared to proteins. Proteins range from Daltons, but the genetic material, I am not speaking about the entire genetic material. A part I am speaking about genes or non-coding regions, which will be about roughly 500 base pairs, 1000 base pairs. So that would be around, say for example, if you take 600 Daltons, it would be around 3 kDa, something around that, or nearly 1000 Daltons, something like that. So it is present in very trace amount. If you are going to RNA for viral pathogens, which is the genetic material, it is present in very meager amount, nanomoles or something like that. So this specific concentration has to be detected. That's where nucleic acid diagnostic plays a very key role regarding the sensitivity and specificity. Specificity, we know the Chargaff's rule. DNA only bases with A with T and G with C, and depending upon the sequence consortium and what are the sequences present adjacent to each other, it can bind to only that specific sequence only. It cannot bind, it doesn't show any other non-specificity. Even enzymes can show it. If you are preparing an analog for a substrate, and if it can bind to it, but in case of nucleic acids, it can bind only to the combination of nucleic acids, which will be very unique for each and every species. That's where you design a primer for that. So that's where it has more advantages than other diagnostic tools. I have given one example here. Sensitive detection of low density malaria infections below 1 parasite per microliter. See, that is in 1 microliter, if the parasite is present below 1, that is below the level of concentration of 1 microliter, that could be traced using nucleic acid diagnostics. Okay, in case of malaria infections. Okay, now we'll move on to the next topic of nucleic acid diagnostics. And where does it involve? Nucleic acid diagnostics, where does it involve? So it involves in 4 ways. Okay, first it involves in target amplification. So nucleic acid, as you know, we only speak about its amplification. Regarding this polymerase chain reaction, we say that if it detects the pathogen and it binds to that sequence, it will just amplify that sequence in order to in order to be diagnosed. Okay, so generally we speak about amplification, but within that amplification also it has various roles. So that's what we are talking about. Where does it involve? So first it involves in target amplification. Second one it involves a signal amplification, and third one it involves a problem amplification, and fourth one it involves post amplification analysis. So we will see each one by one. First of all, target amplification. Okay. So regarding target amplification, target amplification, these are the techniques that are involved in target amplification. First one is PCR, polymerase chain reaction. Second one is reverse transcriptase PCR. That is reverse transcriptase PCR. It is used for amplification of RNA. Then they are coded into cDNA, complementary DNA, using reverse transcriptase PCR. So these are separate topics. We shall see in those topics whenever we come. But we are speaking generally about nucleic acid diagnostics here. So reverse transcriptase PCR. Second one is strand displacement amplification. Strand displacement amplification. So here, whenever there are DNA probes bound onto the target DNA, it just displaces those probes and bind onto that target with the primer, and then it is getting amplified. That is called a strand displacement amplification. Second, and the last one is transcription amplification. So transcription amplification is just similar to reverse transcriptase PCR, but here it binds specifically to the mRNA synthesized from the DNA. So it will target those things. That is called a transcription, and then it gets amplified. So these are the target amplification involved in the nucleic acid diagnostics. Now next one, signal amplification. Signal amplification, you have two techniques: branched DNA assays and hybrid capture. So branched DNA assays, they are shortly known as bDNA assays. It involves DNA fragments, single stranded fragments that are immobilized on a solid support, which gets sticked onto it, and these DNA fragments will be the targeted DNAs, which has to be identified as in the diagnostics, and these are linked through the extended DNA, which is applied into this dish, where that extended DNA will link all these fragments into as branches, just like leaf veins. How does that leaf vein? The middle vein is called a DNA, extended DNA, and the branched the veins are called like DNA fragments, which will stick onto this extended DNA. So this kind of DNA assay is called a branched DNA assays. Where it is used to detect, quantify many types of RNA and DNA target. So if it is not for identifying a single DNA target, it is used to identify multiple types of RNA or DNA target. It involves mainly hybridization. It doesn't involve much about amplification, because it involves only pre-amplification. Already it is amplified, but branched DNA assay, it is an assay where it involves only hybridization. Okay, so that is called branched DNA assays that are also involved in diagnostics tools. So hybrid capture technique involves, it is also an assay, not an amplification technique. It is something which we call it as nucleic acid analysis without amplification. So it is a quantitative nucleic acids test which will quantify nucleic acids present using hybrid capture method, and it uses a phenomena called chemiluminescence. So it uses chemiluminescence method, and it is involved in next generation sequencing, where it is targeted to next generation sequencing, which is normally targeted for whole genomes. So there only it applies to it, and there you are capturing the regions whichever are interested for your diagnosis. So this thing is called hybridization capture or hybrid capture technique. So it is particularly helpful where genotyping, detecting rare variants, and exome sequencing. So it is useful for genotyping. Genotyping in the sense the genetic content regarding their genotype, which is recessive and which is dominant, and detecting rare variants. If there are any rare variant present in the population, we can detect it. And exome sequencing. Exome is nothing but exon rich regions are only sequenced in this sequencing. That is called exome sequencing. For these techniques, this hybrid capture technique is applied. Next we will move on to signal amplification. Is nothing but it is not an amplification, it is just an assay. Next we will see about probe amplification. So under probe amplification, three techniques are involved: ligase chain reaction, cleavage invader, cycling probes. So first of all, ligase chain reaction. So ligase chain reaction, which is shortly known as LCR, okay, compared to PCR, this is called LCR. So what does it do? So it is also it also involves amplification process, but it differs from PCR, in which it involves, the name itself implies ligase. So along with polymerase, ligase is also added, like thermostable ligase, like a thermostable polymerase is added there. Here also thermostable ligase is added, which will join the probes involved in the reaction. So it will join the probes or other molecules that are involved in the PCR reaction. So what it will result? So it will result in a greater specificity as compared to PCR. So compared to PCR, so PCR itself is highly specific. Compared to PCR, it has much more specificity. Okay, because it is ligating whichever relevant molecule, DNA molecules are present after each amplification step. So this kind of LCR is useful for to detect point mutations. Okay, like SNPs or something like it. So whenever there is a single base match at the junction of the two probes, it will prevent the ligation. So here you can detect the normal one and mutated one. So normal DNA molecules will get ligated by the DNA ligase, but if there is a mutation at the end of the DNA fragments, it doesn't stick onto each other. That's how this molecule differentiates normal from the different one. That's where you can use it as a diagnostic tool. Next we will see about what you mean by cleavage invader. So cleavage invader, so the opposite of ligase, cleavage. So cleavage is an enzyme which is synthetically produced, and this enzyme will cleave the DNA molecules which are involved. This technique is normally used in, so I will explain it with the writing. So cleavage invader. First of all, we see what is cleavage enzyme. So cleavage enzyme, so it uses the enzyme called FIN. Okay, and what is that FIN? So flap endonuclease, flap endonuclease. So this enzyme is called cleavage. What you will do, wherever there is a flap in a DNA region, that will cleave the DNA endonuclease, because it is cleaving within the DNA. So flap endonuclease acts as a cleavage here. Okay. So forward, what it is, SNP genotyping. See, it is used in SNP genotyping. So the principle goes like this. So this FIN, what it will do? It will cleave the three-dimensional DNA complex that is already been the hybridization. So wherever these SNP polymorphisms are present, it is already hybridized, and those hybridized polymorphisms are cleaved by this FIN nucleus. Then the second step involves another fluorescence reaction, which is called FRIT. And what is the expansion of FRIT? So fluorescence resonance energy transfer. So fluorescence resonance energy transfer. So using this technique, you will know wherever that cleavage has cleaved that DNA fragments, overlapping fragments, and those fragments will be give the fluorescence using the phenomena called fluorescence resonance energy transfer. So this is in the similar way, wherever there are polymorphisms occur, you can just differentiate from wherever there are no polymorphism. So there only this cleavage invader technique is used, and it is not a modern, very modern technique. It was already, this technique has been utilized in research in the previous decade itself. You can see papers, research papers regarding this cleavage invader technique in 2005, 2006, 2000. So okay. And next one is cycling probe. Cycling probes. So this technique is used compared to PCR. This technique is used to detect whether a specific sequence is present or absent in a sample. So it only will say whether a sequence is present or absent in a sample. So how does it differ from PCR? So this technique is called shortly known as CPT. Okay, and what is CPT? Cycling probe technology. And this is the molecular biological technique that is different from PCR. And the difference is PCR does the amplification, and CPT does not. It also amplifies, but here it is a linear amplification compared to PCR, which is exponential amplification. What do you mean by that exponential amplification? At each cycle, it replicates the previous nth number. Okay. So for example, first cycle 1, second 2, and it goes on to 4, and then it goes to 8. But in case of linear amplification, it only becomes addition. So like an AP series, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. So here it is not, the concept is not about amplification, it is only about the cycling. So how does this process involve? So it uses a sequence specific chimeric probe. Okay, first of all, instead of primer, it uses a sequence specific chimeric probe that will bind onto the complementary target DNA if it is present there. If it is not involved, it will not bind onto it. If the complementary target DNA is present, it will bind as a specific chimeric probe. And this combination, this hybridization is cleaved by the enzyme called RNase H. Okay, here no DNA polymerase, such kind of enzymes. So RNase H enzyme is involved here to cleave that, because it is a chimeric probe, right? So RNA component will be present in that chimeric probe. That is cleaved by this RNase H. And then this cleaved material again goes on into cycle for another binding. Whether if the target molecule is present, second and again it will bind, and again it will be cleaved. It goes on until the sufficient amounts are present. Okay, so this is how CPT works, cycling probe technology. The probe is again and again cycled here, not polymerase chain reaction. It is not chaining, it is cycling. Okay, so it will detect the presence of a particular nucleic acid sequence. So what are the advantages compared to PCR? So compared to PCR, it will has a lower risk of cross contamination. It has a lower risk of cross contamination. So normally for PCR, you have this cross contamination. If you are isolating the DNA, it should be very sterile environment. If there are circumstances, if your hand or any other material in the lab, material are supposed to interfere in your DNA material, so then those things will also amplify. That is called cross contamination. Okay, other than your specific target DNA. But in case of CPT, it doesn't occur here, because it only presents onto the binds onto the target DNA alone. If it is not present, you will get the nil reaction, absent. So, and it is much more faster than PCR. It does not involve amplification in subsequent stages. It only goes for cycling only, which will be finished within an hour or something like that. And so it does not require running on gels and all. Okay, so it doesn't require a thermocycler also. So for PCR you need a thermocycler, so those things are not required here. But it is much more, regarding its disadvantage, it is much more expensive than normal PCR, because it involves a chimeric probe. So that chimeric probe design and synthesis involves, it increases the further cost. Okay, and it also contains RNA. I told you that RNase H is involved, and normally in our room environment RNases will be present. So that non-specific RNases can also cleave your this chimeric probe hybridization. So the application, it detects specific DNA sequences by extension specific genotypes. What do you mean by that extension specific genotypes? If the genotypes are present, you further extend to it, so that additionally you keep on binding it and find out the exact genotype of that particular species. That's where it is used. And it is used specifically in antibacterial resistance of a pathogen. Okay, so alternative to cell culturing, so you can use antibacterial resistance of a pathogen for CPT as a diagnostic tool. So that is the function of all these, like LCR, this Clevis inverter technique, and CPT, which involves a probe amplification. They are all used as a probes. Okay, now we are coming into post amplification analysis. Regarding post amplification analysis, this is done after doing your PCR step. So after doing PCR, the first post amplification analysis which is widely considered is sequencing. Okay, sequencing is which is normally done by which is a type of sequencing which is normally done after this PCR. It is Sanger sequencing. Sanger sequencing. So Sanger sequencing involves the target DNA which is sequenced is into the fragments of 800 base pairs. So if that 800 base pairs will be sequenced to get your genomic alphabets will be synthesized into a texted material, so that you can read out the sequence and go for further analysis. That is post amplification analysis, which is highly useful. Okay, regarding identifying rare diseases and identifying that targets, how it become rare, regarding those sequences, where it is mutated, at which place it is mutated. So that kind of diagnosis involves sequencing of the amplified product. And the second one is microarray product analysis. Microarray, as everybody knows, it differentiates between normal versus diseased. Okay, like in case of cancer also it is being used. So here the DNA is used as a probe, so on which your PCR amplified product will be run out to see whether there is enough, how much, especially for RNA expression. You can go for the level of expression that took place in the diseased state and the normal state. That's why microarray analysis is used. And the third one is melting curve analysis. What it is otherwise known as, it is known as COT analysis. Okay, melting curve analysis, it just tells about the complexity of the DNA present in that organism. So if a pathogen is a complex organism involved, you can know the COT value of that organism using this melting curve analysis. You will just melt the DNA and again, so that the DNA gets denatured. Again you are allowing it to cool down so that it gets reannealed, but the reannealing will take place for the DNA of that organism uniquely. Okay, it depends upon the organism, and each organism has its own COT curve. Not each organism, each species has its own COT curve factor. Based on that factor, you will analyze for this unknown target DNA, and you will compare with the known target DNA COT curve value, so that you can identify that particular organism or particular gene or anything. So these are the post amplification analysis. Now I am going to highlight the applications of this nucleic acid diagnostics, so that we can finish off easily. So first application, it detects infectious diseases. So it is used for detecting infectious diseases. What are the diseases? Especially for viruses, HSV, cytomegalovirus virus, Epstein-Barr virus. So those kind of viral infections can be identified using this nucleic acid diagnostic tool. In case of bacteria, it is used for identifying sexually transmitted diseases such as Chlamydia trachomatis, Neisseria gonorrhoeae, Trichomonas vaginalis, regarding sexually transmitted diseases. Apart from that, you can identify this food poisoning also. So Bordetella pertussis, Staphylococcus aureus. So those kind of pathogen organisms can also be identifying using nucleic acid diagnostics. And then coming on to yeast. So fungal disease, this yeast related infection, Candida albicans, Candida glabrata, so candidiasis. So candidiasis can be identified from these species if it is present in your diseased area. So and for fungi, Aspergillus and Pseudomycetes jerovici are those species which are being utilized for nucleic acid diagnostics. And last coming on to the parasites, Entamoeba histolytica and Giardia lamblia, Plasmodium vivax regarding malaria. This kind of organisms can also be diagnosed through nucleic acids. So these are the application for detecting infectious diseases. And next coming on to the epidemiological studies which has relevance to our current scenario. So I'm just mentioning this and you can just relate it to today's scenario itself. So regarding this epidemiological studies, what do you mean by epidemiological studies? Epidemiological study means the survey of that infection in the population, how much it is infected over the population, how does it become epidemic, how does it become pandemic, how can be arrested. Those kind of studies involves epidemiological studies. And for these studies, nucleic acid diagnosis is the preferred and accurate diagnostic tool to arrest this kind of pandemic which we are fighting for coronavirus also, which are highly believing this PCR diagnostic tool can make you things faster to diagnose the persons affected by this infection. So where does it involve? And regarding this test involved in, first of all, it involves in monitoring, because epidemiology involves not only about preventing the disease, it involves monitoring, viral load monitoring. So regarding HIV, HCV, if you take upon the blood sample, you will know the monitoring viral load, how much viral load is present. So regarding that, you can control in an area. Next one is viral genotyping. So first of all, this coronavirus, novel coronavirus, after SARS and MERS, they did this viral genotyping only, and then they come to know this is a novel coronavirus. That's where viral genotyping is used. And third one is bacterial resistance detection. So MRSA and this kind of bacterial pathogens which are becoming increasingly resistant. So multi-drug resistance. So this kind of bacteria are identified. So novel bacteria which are becoming resistant, their genome can be identified, and a particular gene which is becoming resistant can be identified using this method, bacterial resistance detection. And it has been applied for MRSA via ECSPL containing E. coli and pneumonia also, MDR-TB. So tuberculosis, multi-drug resistance. So for Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And bacterial genotyping. In the same way for viral genotyping, bacterial genotyping is used for Mycobacterium tuberculosis and meningitis. They will identify the strains here. The Mycobacterium tuberculosis has various strains depending on the population, and they will trace out the origin of that spread. So you can trace out the origin of spread. Where does the spread occurred? So it depends upon the mutation occurred. So if there are more mutations, and if you are identifying a single which is a wild one which doesn't show mutation and which has only one mutation, then you can know from that place only these things have started to spread. So that is called bacterial genotyping. And broad range PCR. So infective endocarditis, bacterial meningitis, broad range PCR. So you will take about enormous amount of this targeted tissue material to sufficiently know what are the pathogens present in that disease affected area. That is called a broad range PCR. And the third application is predicting cancer and guiding cancer treatment. The name itself tells that predicting cancer and guiding cancer treatment. Nowadays this cancer is and moreover from all the doctors or physicians or oncologists, whoever comes for cancer diagnosis, they are classified depending on their grades, right? Grade 1, grade 2, and they are classified based on the morphology of the tumor. But even oncologists, in my personal experience, I was also being given an advice or seeken an advice by these oncologists, surgeons, where they stress the importance of this genomics, because they are overwhelmed by this genomic technologies about identifying the stages of the cancer when compared to the morphological identification, because suppose a terribly affected person by a cancer who is about in the last stage have also been cured with the chemotherapy itself, and a person with the stage 1 who is about to who has got cancer recently, who is present in stage 1, have also been this kind of chemotherapeutics has been not so effective for those people, and they have also become fatal, and they have given their lives also. This was experienced by oncologists. In my personal experience, they have discussed with me, and they see the importance of this genomics that can be used as a diagnostic tool for knowing the stages of this cancer disease. So it helps in detection of the mutations in the genes. So it can help you whichever genes are called tumor suppressor genes and whichever genes are oncogenes, where does that mutation takes place. So, and what are those genes that are used in nucleic acid diagnostics? I will give you some examples. For breast cancer, BRCA1 and BRCA2 are identified regarding their mutation in order to recognize whether it is a female breast cancer or ovarian cancer, because these genes are involved in this kind of cancers. Okay, and similarly these genes are involved. So TP53, so it is Love-Romani syndrome, it is related to breast cancer. Whether that complexity lead to breast cancer, it can be identified from their mutations. Similarly, these kind of genes are involved for identifying the mutations relevant to the cancer. And the second application of predicting cancer is list of cancer drugs that are indicated. This is for guidance of the cancer treatment. So list of cancer drugs that are indicated for cancer patients with particular genetic variants. So this deals with personalized medicine. So how does this react with drugs, cancer drugs react with the person, and how does their genetic variants. So each and every person is different from each other's genetic constituent, even at SNPs and all. So that SNP's contribution is very high regarding identifying the drug response to this polymorphism. So this kind of relationships can be studied from nucleic acid diagnostics. So here these genes involve SNP polymorphisms. So, and these genes are involved against these drugs. For example, this drug afatinib has its relevance to the EGFR. So it is indicated for the first line treatment of patients with metastatic non-small lung NSCLC tumors. So this drug is given for them, and it affects the EGFR gene, and they will detect the mutations upon this drug therapy. Where are the mutations occurring, and how does this cancer leads to, whether it is affecting, whether it is giving positive signs or negative signs. Okay, so this list will give you the idea about that. And the next one, avoid adverse reactions from drugs in individuals. So you can know the drug response when it becomes toxic. So every individual metabolizes drugs according to their medicine. So you can go for pharmacogenetics or pharmacogenomic concepts to identify their drug response. Okay, personalized and precise medicine regarding pharmacogenetics and pharmacogenomics. Okay, and the next application is, and the final application is genetic mutation in the mitochondrial DNA. So it is highly useful for the diagnosis of mitochondrial diseases. For example, in LHON, Leber hereditary optic neuropathy. So this disease involves mitochondrial DNA. So that DNA can be targeted and identified where that mutations have occurred, and from that you can diagnose the progression of the disease. And these are the diseases relevant to the mitochondrial DNA disorders, and this is the clinical phenotype that is being observed, and this is where the genes have been targeted for the diagnostics. Okay, a single large scale detection. So here a single gene has been targeted for large scale changes in that gene in order to identify this syndrome. So in the similar way, all other genes are involved in in the respective diseases for mitochondrial diseases. Okay, so with this nucleic acid diagnostics gets complete, and this is a generalized topic, and within this topic you have been given another topic, PCR diagnostics. We will discuss specific techniques in that topic in the next class. Thank you.